Okay, so we're at the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, and the Mishnah was bothered with the double lashon, the repetitive language of Dine Mamanos B'Shlosha and Gzelos v'Chavalos B'Shlosha. Oh, Jules is here. Morning. Just summarizing yesterday a little bit. The Gemara was bothered by this double language of Dine Mamanos B'Shlosha and Gzelos v'Chavalos B'Shlosha. And the first attempt was, there's a sort of like a setup, it was like a headline. What are the monetary laws that are with three? There are gzelos v'chavalos, stealing and injuring. That's coming to exclude the idea of loaning and admitting that you owe money, admitting that you owe a loan. And we said really there should be, really that should be three also. However, not to, in order not to prevent the economy from functioning. So these three don't need to be experts. It could be any three people, and that was our attempted answer of why we excluded them from the Mishnah. So we're 5 lines down. Gimel Amud Aleph. Ihachi, if this is really true, that our Mishnah was only talking about stealing and injuring, coming to exclude hodaos v'halvaos, admission in front of witnesses that you owe money. If that's true, so then tartikatani, ihachi tartikatani, dine mamanos b'shlosha had yotos, gzelos v'chavalos b'shlosha mumchen. So if this is true, our mission should say that. Our mission just says dine mamanos b'shlosha, general monetary laws are with 3, and gzelos v'chavalos are also with 3. So it should specify monetary laws are with 3 regular people. Gzelos v'chavalos are with 3 experts. It doesn't say that. Furthermore, v'od shlosha hamali. Don't tell me that dine mamanos is a setup sentence, because look what it says. It says, the Mishnah starts off, dine mamanos bishlosha, gzelos v'chavalos bishlosha. If the dine mamanos is just a setup for the following line, it should say, dine mamanos, what are they? They're gzelos and chavalos that are with 3 people. It would seem like dine mamanos is his own category. So that Elam Rava says, you're right. Tarti Katani, our Mishnah is talking about 2 separate cases. It's talking about hodaos v'halvaos, borrowing money, admitting that you owe money. That's the first part. And the second part is gzelos v'chavalos. And and really the admission that you owe money, you can do that in front of that court case can be 3 regular people. However, injuring or hurting somebody, that's going to require 3 experts. So now, right after the period, that was all Rava now. Rav Acha Breid Rav Ika Amar, biblically he argues, before we said biblically you need 3 judges for any kind of monetary case. Why? Because it says the word Elohim 3 times, and that teaches you that you need 3 judges. It should teach you that you need 3 experts. That we said we didn't want to prevent people from lending money, so 3 regular people is okay too. Comes Rav Acha Breid Rav Ika, Rav Acha the son of Rika, and he says, Midoraisa chad nami kosher. Biblically, even one by a case of admission that you owe money or that you borrowed money, really one judge could judge that case. Shenamar, how do I know? It says betzedek tishvar amisecha. It says that betzedek you should judge righteously. One judge, tzedek, you should judge righteously. That's it. So why do we require 3? Elamishum yoshvei karanos. I don't know a good translation of yoshvei karanos, but it basically means people that are like the average layman, the person who's literally the guy that sits in the carriage. I mean, it's the guy that's sort of a lower level in society who doesn't know much. So if you only require 1 judge, we're worried, who's this guy going to be? This guy going to be the guy that sits doing nothing all day. You're going to choose him to be your judge. Therefore, rabbinically, we require 3 people. Says the Gemara, really? Atu betlata milo havi yosher karanos. What? And if you're worried about people that are not learned, that are just, so to speak, wasting their life away to be your judge, so what does requiring three people do for you? You might find three people that know nothing. Three nudniks, exactly. So says Gemara, Milo Have Yosher Karanos. You're not going to find three nudniks. So says Gemara, no. It's impossible to less lubu chad de gamir. When you're in the process of looking for judges, one guy's going to know something. So three sort of guarantees at least one of them will know something. Yeah, interesting answer. Says the Gemara, Elameat, if that's true, that you're basically upgrading the regular guy to that now you can be a judge. So the halacha is by an expert judge, if he makes a mistake, he does not need to pay money. Elameat tolo yishalmu. So it says if that's true, then if they make a mistake, they don't need to pay because they've been upgraded to, now you can be a judge, even a regular guy. So kol shekain dinafish yosher karanos. So then you're for sure going to increase Yoshvei Karanos. Why? Because no one's going to, if you don't require them to pay money, because biblically you need really an expert. Rabbinically we said, listen, any three guys are fine. And we're going to give them the status like experts. Experts don't need to pay if they made a mistake. If these three guys don't need to pay because they made a mistake, then any Joe Schmo is going to come and judge the case. What's going to stop him? If you make him pay, that's going to stop him. But if you don't make him, you're for sure. If you're really worried about, the average nudnik coming to judge the case, then not charging them and viewing them as experts is not going to help that cause. One second. Yeah. Okay, so at the end of the day, Rava says you need three people. Rav Acha Brei Ravika says you need three people. Rava says you need three biblically, just they don't need to be experts. Rav Acha Brei Ravika says you need one biblically, and rabbinically we allow you to do three people that don't need to be experts. Okay, at the end of the day, though, you need three people that don't need to be experts to judge a case of admission and admission in front of witnesses that you owe somebody money. Says the Gemara, so what's the difference? My ika bein Rava or Rav Acha Brei Ravika. According to both of them, you can use three regular people to judge this monetary case, not stealing and injuring, rather admission in front of witnesses that you owe money. And the guy says no. He says, yeah, that court case can be judged by three regular people. So what's the practical difference between those two opinions? Ikebeinayu, Damar Shmuel. Shmuel's opinion is the practical difference. What does Shmuel hold? Shnayim Shadanu, two people who judge a case, a monetary case, their judgment is good. Ella, rather, Shenikru Bezdin Chatzah. They're called a brazen Bezdin, meaning we never advise two people to judge a case. Right? We had earlier, you have to have a uneven Bezdin. However, Shmuel has this opinion that it'll work. Not advised, but if they do it, it'll work. So that's a difference. If you hold that you only need one judge biblically, here you have two. If you hold that you need three judges biblically, you only have two. So if two people get up and they go judge a case, do we say it's a good case or not? That would be a practical difference between Rava and Rav Acha Brei Ravika. L'Rava Laslei, the Shmuel, the Rav Acha Brei Ravika is the Shmuel. Rava does not hold the Shmuel, and Rav Acha, the son of Ravika, does hold the Shmuel. So, in summary, the first words of our mission, Dine Mamonus B'Shlosha, is referring to a case where witnesses come and say Ruvain owed Shimon money. Either he borrowed money, or maybe for another reason he owes him money. Maybe he admitted to owing money. That case can be judged by three regular people, either because one is biblical, and we rabbinically say you can have three regular guys, or three experts is biblical, and rabbinically we could say they can have three regular guys. Either way, they differ. That law differs than the law of injury and stealing, which needs three experts. Okay, next part of our mission: nezek v'chatzi nezek. So we know when a wild ox gores, you got to pay the full price of the person you injured, of the property you injured. If a non-wild ox, a short Talmud, it's called a simple ox, one that hasn't gored three times yet, then you pay chatzi nezek. Then you only pay half. Now, that seems to be different than injuring. What's the difference? Nezek hainu chavalos. The Mishnah told us gzelos v'chavalos. one of the categories is injury. Now, injury, by the way, I forgot to mention yesterday, injury includes 5 things. There's always 5 things you pay for injury. You pay for the guy's doctor, his medical bills. You pay for the time he's off of work. You pay for his embarrassment he has now, that he has a big, a big bump sticking out of his head. Things like that. There's 5 things you pay for by chavalos. If your ox damages, that's also injuring. What's the difference? Nezek hainu chavalos. No, mishum de kabayil meaning you're right, but we wanted to teach the case of chatzi nezek. Since we taught chatzi nezek, we taught nezek too. So Tananami nezek shalom says the Gemara. The obvious question: chatzi nezek nami hainu chavalos. Even paying half is also considered injuring, right? What's the difference? Your ox injured, let's say your ox goes and and rams into the other guy's animal, right? That's also called damaging. So no, says the Gemara, Tana mamona v'katani knasa. It's a difference. The chavalos injuring is called mamona, meaning that's money you really owe. Chatzi nezek, when your simple ox, the non-wild ox, gores, that's called a knas. By the way, knas always something that you really don't owe. It doesn't make logical sense why you owe it. The Torah makes you pay for it. The Torah has a logic why, but if your ox that never did anything all of a sudden goes and injures somebody, right now the Gemara assumes that's called a knas. So we'll see more in a second. Hanicha lamanda amar palganiska knasa. Ela lamanda amar palganiska mamona ma'ikal meimar. So background: there are 2 opinions in Bava Kama. Regular oxen, how do you view that? I almost said oxes. Regular oxen, how do you view them? So, do we assume that the regular oxen are not dangerous at all? And therefore, if the regular, domesticated, so to speak, I mean they're not, but they're like, who knows, if all of a sudden your bunny rabbit goes, I don't know, and decides to destroy a house, right? It's out of left field. It's so. Do you view oxen that way also? If you do view them that way, then when they damage, the reason why the Torah made you pay for it is to increase watching even those kinds of animals. Really, you shouldn't have to pay. The Torah made you pay because they wanted to increase watching even of a tame ox. The other opinion said, no, regular oxen, even though they're not wild, but they're still dangerous. Really, you should pay the whole thing. The Torah had Rahmanas on you. The Torah had what's the word for it? It had mercy on you, so it only made you pay half. So if a regular ox is guarded like a domesticated animal, let's say, then it's considered a knas. The fact you have to pay is just to make sure that you watch it. But really, it's not. You're not paying back the damage that you did. You're more paying for the fact that you didn't watch your animal. That's called a knas. So says the Gemara, the reason why I have 2 separate categories is because damaging in our chavalos, says you punch somebody, let's say, that you have to pay for. The fact that you're a simple ox gored, that's called a knas. So, the other opinion in Bava Kama says that a regular ox, when it gores, really you should pay. If it breaks your window, you should have to pay all $1,000 for the window. The Torah had mercy on you and only made you pay half. But really, it's the same as punching somebody. A regular ox, according to that opinion, you should be watching it. That's the status is you should be watching it. If it injures, then you have to pay. If that's true, so why are there 2 separate categories in our Mishnah? One called chavalos and one called chatzi nezek. They're both injuring and they both have to pay. So Michael Meimar, Ella Aidi de Kabai lemisn tashlumei kevel v'tashlumi arba v'chamisha de mamon she'ena mishtalim barosh. Since our Mishnah, turning the page, taught a case of where you have to pay 4 or 5, which we'll see more about, is a case of a sheep that you stole, shechted and sold, or a sheep, I think, or an ox, depending on the animal you stole, shechted and sold. You have to pay 4 times the amount or 5 times the amount. That's a real knas. Logically, you should just pay for what you stole, but we obligate you to pay 4 or 5 times the amount. That is considered money which is not paid she'ena mishtalim barosh. Barosh literally means head, but here means the principal. It's money that you have to pay more than the principal. So since that's money you pay more than the principal, Tananami chatzi nezek, dimamon she'ena mishtalim barosh. They're both money that you don't pay the principal. One you pay more than the principal. one you pay less than the principal. So since we taught that category of money that is not exactly the principal, it's more than the principal, we taught chatzi nezek, which is less than the principal. Once you taught chatzi nezek, because you taught 4 and 5, therefore it's like a domino reaction, right? Because you taught 4 and 5, which is paying more than the principal, therefore you taught half, your chatzi nezek, half of the payment if your ox scores, because that's also not the principal. It's less than the principal. Once you taught chatzi nezek, then you taught nezek, because they go together. They're both categorically the same, and have to do with ox scoring, so that's the same. Okay, shlosha minolan. How do you know that you need to have 3 judges? So here we go. Shlosha minolan. The Tana Rabbanan, the Brisa tells us v'nikr balabayis ela Elohim. It's in Shmos, and it says if you don't find somebody steals and you don't find him, so the person that owns the object, you will be brought towards the person who stole it is going to be brought towards Elohim, a judge. That's one. Harei kan echad. Ad Elohim yavo davar shneim harei kan shnayim. Then it says the word Elohim again in the same parsha. That's referring to 2. Asher yarshiun Elohim harei kan shlosha. Another mention of the word Elohim, that is the 3rd time it's mentioned. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. That's mean Rabbi Yoshia. Very simple. In the parsha of someone does something that's wrong. In this case, one is stealing or stealing. It says Elohim 3 times, and therefore you learn that 3 judges. Simple, right? Not so bad. That is all Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonasan argues. He says, Omer Rishon Techila Namar. No. So Rishon Techila Namar ve'ein dorshin techilas. He says, listen, the first time, it's interesting, it's a general discussion apparently. Not apparently, there is. The first time something's mentioned, is it open for interpretation or you need it for itself? Right? But the same thing happens by, you need 3 walls for a sukkah. It says, sukkot. It says 3 times. There it's the same thing. The first time you needed to teach you a sukkah, the next 2 times are extra. So that's behind the scenes of what's happening over here. That the first time it says Elohim, do you need it for yourself or not? Now, what does it mean you need it for yourself? So that's a machlokas. Rashi said you needed to teach you the idea that you need experts. The first time that Elohim, it teaches that Elohim is always referring to someone who's in a rulership position, meaning an expert judge. He's an expert. Therefore, it's not open for interpretation. I believe the Tosfos here argues, and he says no, you just need it for itself because you need it for itself. First, you have to know that you have to go to a judge, but you don't count that. It's just a general thing of going to a judge. You don't count that as one of the 3. Okay, we'll see what the difference is soon. But those are the 2 opinions. So Rabbi Yonasan says the first one is for itself, ve'ein dorshin techilos, and you don't expound, the first time things are mentioned. So how do you know 3? Ela ad Elohim yavo davar shnein harein kan echad. Okay, that's 1. Asher yarshiun Elohim harei kan shnayim. The word yarshiun, not the translate yarshiun, but it's to make someone guilty, to what? Yeah. Condemn. Good, that's a good word. So here it's written with a plural. It's yarshiun is written in plural. So asher yarshiun Elohim sounds like they will condemn. Who's they? 2 judges? That's 3. 1 plus 2 is 3. Harein kan shnayim. So sorry. I jumped the gun. Sorry. That's 2. That's 2. Sorry, that's 2. Yeah, they're gonna say that in a few lines. Harei kan shnayim ve'ein bezdin shakel. You can't have a bezdin shakel. You can't have an equal bezdin. So therefore, logically, I add 1. Mosif alein od echad. So now one opinion holds we have 3 Elohims. Other opinion holds you have 2 Elohims, but you can't have an even bezdin. Therefore, you need a 3rd. Obvious question is, why didn't the first opinion hold to that? If you agree to the idea that you don't need 2 judges, that you don't need 3, that you need 3 because you can't have an even bezdin, so then why do you have to have? It sounds like you need a 3rd time it says Elohim to get a 3rd judge. Why? Have 2 Elohims, and then you can't have a bezdin that's equal. Therefore, you have a 3rd person. Okay, so keep that in mind. So, if you want to, you don't have to. So Mosiv Land Odechad Harei Kan Shlosha. Okay, so now we have a machlokas. Says the Gemara, what's the machlokas? Nema bedorshin techilos kamiflagi. So first attempt is, by the way, the word nema is the same thing. Nema, lema, ema. They all are a proposed suggestion, which usually gets rejected. So nema, just see, it comes up all the time. Nema, ema, lema. So nema say that they're arguing about this idea. Do you expound the first time something's mentioned? Do you need it for itself, or can you expound it? Bedorshin techilos kamiflagi. They're arguing about expounding beginnings, meaning the first time things are mentioned. One opinion holds you do. Therefore, the word Elohim is open to be used as the first judge. Umar Sever, no, you need it for itself. Therefore, I only have two other Elohims that are open for interpretation. That's why I get to. So, attempted suggestion, rejected. Low. That's not what they're arguing about. The Kuli Alma, everybody holds, everyone holds you don't expound the first time something is mentioned. Everyone agrees to that. If you do not expound the first time something's mentioned, so then what are they arguing about? And where does that other opinion get a third Elohim from? Amar Lach Rav Yoshia. Rav Yoshia agrees that the first time you don't expound. So then, sounds like you had three times said Elohim. Where'd you get that from? Im Kain Nema Kra. The verse should say, "V'nikra balabais el hashofet." I have another reason. It's not because it says Elohim for the first time. If it were just that, I also would not expound it. But the problem was that it said a different word. If you're just teaching me, it should be taken to the judge. You should use the word that means judge, which is what? A shofet. Shoftim v'shochim titen lecha, a judge. Mai el Elohim. The fact that it used a different word, so it's teaching you two things. It's teaching you, that you have to go to a judge. But since it used a different word, now that's also open for interpretation. Mai el Elohim shma mino liminyana. It must be to teach me that it's going to be the first of the count of three. Oh, that's Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yoshia has three Elohims, not because he expounds the first time, because it's really in other areas he won't expound the first time, unless the Torah uses a different language. Then it's open for expounding. The Rabbi Yonasan, what does he do? So it's a great question. According to Rabbi Yonasan, that only has two times it says Elohim. The first time he does not count. Why not? So says Rabbi Yonasan, the fact that he used the word shofet is lishna de alma nakat. That's just regular language. That's the way people speak. Why? Ki the amri inshi man de isledina likarv legabe dayana. One who has a court case, go take it to the judge. Meaning that we know the general rule is that the Torah is brought down. The Rambam says, Rashi says, the Gemara says that the Torah is written in Lashon Bnei Adam. It's often written in a way for us to understand. So meaning the word shofet, that's normal. Don't make a big deal. It's a shofet, not Elohim. Shofet is a normal way to speak, and therefore it's not open for interpretation. Therefore, I'm not bothered by your interpretation that it says shofet and not Elohim. I think shofet is a regular good usage of the word. Okay. Now, very interesting is our question. Rabbi Yoshia, who has three times it says Elohim, isn't there a very logical way to get to three? Two times Elohim, you can't have an even Bezdin, and therefore you need a third judge, right? Yeah. Rabbi Yoshia Leslie Bezdin Nota, does he not have this idea of a Bezdin has to be tilted, meaning you have to have an uneven number so you could tip the scales, right? Now I'm just thinking out loud right now. We just had Shmuel. Shmuel holds biblically two is a good Bezdin. Maybe Rabbi Yoshia and Shmuel agree, right? That'd be that only two biblically. Okay, but Gemara assumes that no one holds like Shmuel. It sounds like Shmuel. No one else holds like that. I don't know, but we assume that Rabbi Yoshia, right? So Rabbi Yoshia, I guess we know that Rabbi Yoshia says three. That's why we know he says three. The question is, well, how'd you get to three? Why do you have to have a third verse to expound? Just use logic. I guess that's the answer. Okay. Rabbi Yoshia Leslie Bezdin, note that. Does Rabbi Yoshia not hold to this idea that you have to have a tilted Bezdin, meaning you have to have a Bezdin that can always tilt the scale? You'll never have an equal on both sides. The Hatanya, how could that be? How could he not hold of that? We have a brisa saying, Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Yossi Galili Omer, Ma Talmud Lomar. What is Ma Talmud Lomar lintos? Acharei Rabim lahatos. It sounds like you have to have, the Torah itself says you have to tilt. You have to go after the majority, meaning HaTorah Amra Aselecha Bezdinota. I mean, the Brisa says explicitly, the fact that the Torah used a certain language which told us you have to be tilted and you have to go after the majority means that you have to have a number of a bezdin that you can go after the majority. You can't have an even bezdin. That's an explicit brisa. So what does Rabbi Yoshi hold? He doesn't argue with that brisa. So maybe he'll say Savar like Rabbi Yehuda. He's going to hold like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah held what? You need 70 for the bezdin agadol. What does Rabbi Yehuda do with that brisa? Apparently, he can have 35 and 35, and I don't know. But we have Rabbi Yehuda, a Tana in the Mishnah. Also, that doesn't hold to this idea. It sounds like, even though we only found that he says it by 70, we never found that Rabbi Yehuda says it by 23,753, only by 70. Okay, but right now we're assuming we'll go like several like Rabbi Yehuda Damar Shivim. The Tanan, as the Mishnah told us yesterday, at the end of that long Mishnah, Sanhedrin Gdola Haisa Shal Shivim Ve'achad. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shivim. Rabbi Yehuda said it's comprised of 70 people. So you see that he also doesn't hold of a bezdin nota. Says the Gemara, the obvious rebuttal. Back up. Aimer the Shamislay Rabbi Yehuda Sanhedrin Gedola. Rabbi Yehuda only says that by Sanhedrin Gedola, by 7 people of the great Sanhedrin, of the great Sanhedrin, but he doesn't argue by any other Sanhedrin like 3 or 23. Why does he argue over there? Diksivi Krai. There's psukim. Esfali Shivim Ish. Gathered from me 70 people. Who said Moshe Rabbeinu is included in that 70 to make 71? He understands it to mean 70. Hashem told Moshe, get me 70 people. Obviously, a bezdin of 70 is enough, right? But we don't find that by 3 people or 23 people. So you can't say that Rabbi Yoshia is going to disagree with the Brisa because he has Rabbi Yehuda to rely on. He doesn't have Rabbi Yehuda to rely on. Only by a great Sanhedrin does Rabbi Yehuda say that. So the Shar Beidina Mishamislay, we never found that Rabbi Yehuda says this by other courts. V'chi Temaloshna, maybe you'll say there's no difference. At the end of the day, what's the difference? Maybe he'll also disagree by regular courts. And the problem is the Mishnah. V'hatnan, explicitly the Mishnah told us by Smicha Zekenim, which is either putting your hands on an animal that the Bezdin, when they made a mistake, they erred in judgment, on their offering that they have to bring. They do special smicha, hands on the animal that has no in front of 3 people, or maybe like the Rambam said, that when you go to give your student the title of a rabbi, you have to put your hands on him in front of 3 people also. Either way, it says smicha zekenim, the arifas egel, when you're measuring that the corpse was, what city, how far the city was from the dead corpse that you found. All of that is bishlosha, Divrei Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'chamisha. Why 5? Because you also need a tilted bezdin. You also need a bezdin that's uneven. The Amrina, we asked, my time Rabbi Yehuda. Why does Rabbi Yehuda hold you need to have 5 people by these cases? Because it says in the verse, the samchu, and they should put their hands on him. Samchu, that's 2 people should put their hands on him. It's in plural. The samchu shnayim. The samchu zikne is also mi zikne Yisrael, from the elders of Israel. Elders is a family in Kesser. No, elders is also it means plural, so that's also 4, and that's all Rabbi Yehuda has. How do you get to 5? The ein bezdin shakel. You can't have an even bezdin. Mosif and alein od echad. You add 1 more. Harei kan chamisha. So Rabbi Yehuda himself is only saying 70 in an uneven bezdin in one special situation. Rabbi Yehuda himself agrees that if you ever have biblically an even number that you expound for your court, you always add in 1 more logically, because the Torah wants you to have a majority. To have a majority, you have to have an uneven number. So back to the drawing board. What does Rabbi Yoshia, who expounds 3 Elohims in the Torah, what does he do with that? How come he doesn't hold to this logic that you have to have a majority, and you need another verse to expound it? The Rabbi Yoshia adifa med Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yoshia is greater. He's better than Rabbi Yehuda. What does that mean? The ilu Rabbi Yehuda b'Sanhedrin gedola Huda leslei b'ha b'shar beis dina islei. Rabbi Yehuda agrees that you need to have a uneven number in your court by every other case. The Rabbi Yoshia sounds like in every case b'shar beis dina nami leslei. Sounds like Rabbi Yoshia doesn't need that. He doesn't hold to this idea that you have to have an uneven bezdin, meaning he has 3 judges by a monetary case, But any other case that you would require judges, that's not a case of, let's say like, let's say like um, measuring from one city to the other, right? That the verse only tells us 4, doesn't tell us 5. So then Rabbi Yoshi would have only 4 in that case, or maybe a bezin of 23. Maybe he'll expand it that it just means it'll mean 22, and you don't need to have an extra person because you don't have to go after the majority. Okay, what's the problem though? What does he do with that verse? Elahai lintos mahi avidlei. The verse that's expounded by the Brisa of lintos to be tilted teaches us to go after the majority, meaning you have to have always an ability that you can go after a majority. So mahi avidlei, what do you do with that? Mokim la bedine nefashos, aval bedine mamanos lo. He'll take that verse, which tells us that you have to go after the majority, and he'll apply it only to capital punishment. There, the Torah specified we have to go after the majority, but don't bring that into anywhere else. Yeah. So the commentators are bothered by where in that verse do you see necessarily that it's talking about capital punishment. So the verse itself reads that it says "Losia achrei rabim liraos." The first part of the verse, don't go after the majority liraos, to do bad, to do evil. What's that mean? So Tosa says ra is referring to something which is universally bad, which is capital punishment, which is killing somebody. That's something that's something which is universally bad, to put someone to death. So meaning the verse itself is implying that we're talking about death, giving a death sentence. There we need to have a majority. Here you always have to have the ability to go after the majority. You can't have an even bezdin. Okay, so now says the Gemara, hold on, is that really true that we're only going to have this requirement of an uneven bezdin by capital punishment, but we're not going to have it by monetary cases? Ela haditnan, our Mishnah, the Mishnah says later on, Shnayim omrim zakai ve'echad omer chayiv. 2 people say a guy's innocent, and one guy says one guy says he's guilty. Shnayim omrim zakai ve'echad omer chayiv. What's the halacha? Zakai, he's innocent. Shnayim omrim chayiv. 2 people say a guy is guilty. Ve'echad omer zakai. One says innocent. What's the halacha? Chayiv. So what do you see? It sounds like you have a case where you have okay. So now Rabbi Yoshi requires 3 people. We're right now trying to posit that he does not hold of this idea of a majority, right? So now he doesn't hold of it that the bezdin has to have a majority when they rule there. So right now the Gemara thinks that if you have 3 people and you have nothing by monetary cases, and you have nothing in the Torah telling you that you need a majority, so what do you need for a case, a monetary case? You need all 3 to agree. You don't have a verse telling you you have to go after the majority, even by monetary cases. You only have like capital punishment. So that means that you need all 3 to agree. Good luck. No, you need all 3 to agree. So on that, we're asking, we see later on Tractate Sanhedrin, the Mishnah says, if 2 say innocent and 1 says guilty, or 2 say guilty and 1 says innocent, the halacha is you go after the majority. So we see it's a Mishnah says you after the majority. So says the Gemara, you're right. Nema, same word nema, suggested but going to be rejected. Nema delo Rabbi Yoshia. So yeah, that Mishnah, what do you have to say, is not like Rabbi Yoshia. There's nowhere in the Torah that he has available to teach you this halacha that you got the majority, which by the way is interesting. It would mean that without the verse teaching you in the Torah to go after the majority, the requirement would be everyone has to agree. It's only because there's a verse in the Torah written in a certain way that we expound to teach us that you can go after the majority. But it means without that verse, it would be interesting. You would always have to have everyone agree. So that'd be exactly well. So sounds like a board meeting's nightmare, no? 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 Sounds like a board meeting's normal. A board meeting's normal. So says the Gemara, no. Afilu tema Rabbi Yoshia. Say even Rabbi Yoshia agrees. Why? My sila bekal v'chomer. He's going to use one of the ways we derive things is from something called a kal v'chomer. If you find a leniency in a strict case, you can apply the leniency to a more lenient case. Classic case is that a Jewish holiday, Yom Tov, has special exceptions that Shabbos doesn't have. You can do certain malachas that you can't do on Shabbos. Special rule, ochel nefesh, for eating you can do on Yom Tov, such as cooking. So there it's always like, that's a good case, because if we ever find a leniency on Yom Tov, right, that, if you ever find a leniency on Shabbos, which is more strict, you should apply it to a Yom Tov, which is more lenient. If you find a leniency by capital punishment, which is more strict, you should apply that to monetary matters as well. Says Rabbi Yoshia, says the Gemara for Rabbi Yoshia, capital punishment, dechamiri, they're very, very strict. Why are they strict? Maybe they need more judges, maybe because killing somebody is more strict. Amar Rachmana, the Torah says, Zil Basaruba, you're allowed. You don't need everyone to agree, all 23. You can have 12. You can have a majority, and a majority is enough to what's the word? Adjudicate the guy? Execute the guy. That's a better word. Execute the guy. A majority works. Dine mamanos lo kol shekain. For sure, by monetary matters, which are more lenient, for sure you can go after Rav. Okay. At the end of the day, Rabbi Yoshia agrees that by monetary matters you could go after the majority. He just disagrees in terms of the biblical requirement for 3. He needs to expound 3 times the word Elohim, and the other opinion holds only twice, and logic will get us a 3rd guy. Okay. Tana Rabbanan says the Brisa, Dine Mamanas b'shlosha, Rabbi Omer b'chamisha, Kidei sheyigmor hadin b'shlosha. So, the Brisa says, similar to our Mishnah, that Dine Mamanos is b'shlosha. Monetary matters are with 3 people. Rabbi Omer b'chamisha. He says you need 5 people. Why? Kidei sheyigmor hadin b'shlosha. So you always have 3 on one side. In order that, not always, but in order that you have at least 3, right? You can have 4 against 1 or 5 and 0, but you have at least 3 people. There won't be a split of 2 and 2. To get that, you need 5 people total to come out with that. You should be able to finish off with 3. So says the Gemara, Atu betlata milo gomer dina betray. What does that mean? But with 3 people on your bezdin, you could always conclude with 2. So meaning you need 5 so you can have a majority of 3, but with 3 you have a majority of 2. So like, why do you need 5? What's wrong with 3 and always having, the 3rd guy take sides, and then you have 2 against 1, and that's a majority. Milo Gomer Dina betray. You're not going to finish off the halacha, the court case with 3, with 2 people. So no, like this. Hachi kamar. Mipnei shegamar din b'shlosha. What he needs is, he holds that biblically you need 3 people to conclude something. You need 3 people that to make a decision. Thank you. That you need 3. Not that you need 3 to start with. You need 3 to end with. You have to have 3 saying he's guilty, 3 saying he's innocent, 3 saying he owes money, 3 saying he doesn't owe money. So al makasavar, it sounds like he holds tlata kiksivi begamar dina ksivi. The 3 times it says Elohim, the 3 biblical verses that we have, is not referring to when you walk into the court case, there should be 3 judges there. It's when you finish the court case, there should be 3 judges on the final decision. So at least 3, be 4 or 5. So the only way to ensure you always have 3 on one side is to have 5, right? You can't have 4, it's even. You can't have 3, you'll have only 2. You have 5, that's how it was. Okay. So now on that, Megadev ba Rabbi Abahu. Megadev, he was very unhappy. The word Megadev has the whole. The actual word Megadev, the whole Gemara Sanhedrin about this is the person who lashed out against God, but he lashed out against him very intensely. Megadev ba Rabbi Abahu. What are you talking about? Ela ma'ata. What's going to happen now? Tehei Sanhedrin gedola tzricha me'av arba'im ve'echad. The great court's going to need 141, right? You should have 71 on each side. Yeah. So Kadesh Yigmar Adin B'Shim V'Echad. V'Tehei Sanhedrin Tana. What's with the small court of 23? Tehei Sanhedrin Tana Arba'im V'Chamish. You need 45 people. Kadesh Yigmar Adin B'Shlosh V'Eshim. should have 23 on one side. So like, and that's not true. Ella esfeli shivim ish amar rachmana. The Torah says, gather for me 70 people, not conclude with 70. Gather for me 70. What does that mean? It means mishas asifa shivim. From the time you gather, you need 70. Furthermore, v'shaftu ha'eda v'hitzilu eda. This is the verse that we used yesterday to derive how we got to 23. It says you should judge with the eda. So you see that it's mishas shvitas ha'eda, from the time that they're judging, meaning that verse was expanded to teach us that you need 23. Eda was 10, Eda was 10. And then we added one or two more, and then we got a third one because of you can't have even Bezdin. But what do you see? It's v'shaftu. When they start judging, you have to have the people there. Now when they conclude, so too, when it comes to monetary matters, hachanami, v'nikra balabayis el Elohim, even our verse, you should bring the person to the judge. Mishas kreva shlosha. From when you bring him, there has to be 3 people there, not when you conclude his judgment. So why is Rebbe holding you need 5 to finish off with 3? We just have 3 proofs in every area that you need a Sanhedrin. The Torah itself sounds like it wants you to start off with that number, not to end with that number. Eloheinu taima de Rebbe, asher yarshiun Elohim. It says asher yarshiun Elohim. He derives the verse yarshiun means plural, that they should, the judges should convict him. Asher yarshiun Elohim trey. It says there 2. Then it says nemer Elohim lamata, v'nemer Elohim lamala. There's the word Elohim is mentioned above this verse, and this verse itself. So what does that mean? Ma lamata shnayim. Just like this verse, Asher yarshiun Elohim, he expounds the word yarshiun to refer to plural, means 2. So to the Elohim that's above it, meaning earlier in the Torah, that Elohim, we're comparing the 2 Elohims, also referring to 2. The Ein Bezdin Shakel Mosif Alam Odachad Reikan Chamisha. Rebbe holds 5 because he derives from the verses that one of the Elohims, the word Yarshiun, is implying that you'd have to have 2. Once he has 2 over here, he compares to the earlier Elohim, that's also 2. He gets 4, and then the 5th one is going to be, logically, you can't have an even Bezdin. And what's the Rabbanan? V'Rabbanan, they say Yarshiun Ksiv. Meaning, if you look at the verse itself, mine is here on the side, when it's spelled, if you look, the way the Gemara has it is, it's a Yud Rei Shin Yud, then it's an Ayin, the second class letter is a Vav. The way you pronounce it is Yarshiun, with that Vav. That's going to imply plural. The way it's written in the Torah is Yarshiun. The reason why you say Un is because there's a 3, is the nekudos under the ayin. Thank you. Without the vav. Now, if you take the nekudos out, so you don't have to read it yarshiun, yarshion, and now it implies singular. So, yeah. So therefore, he says no. You should expound it not the way you pronounce it, but expound it the way it's written. The way it's written doesn't have an implication of plural, and therefore we don't expound it like that. So on Shabbos, we're going to get. What is that?
You said doesn't have plural.
So Rebbe understands it that it's going to be plural because he expounds it the way it's pronounced, Yarshiun with a vav. We just look at the Torah itself without just the way it's written. The way it's written doesn't. So, and this is the introduction to tomorrow, where we're going to talk about the concept called Yesh Aim Lemikra or Yesh Aim Lemesoris. When you have cases that the Torah writes it one way, but you read it a different way. So how do you expound that? After the way you read it, or after the way it's written? That's called Yesh Aim Lemikra and Yesh Aim Lemesoris, and we will stop here.